Here. We're live on YouTube and Facebook.
Can't really get both of us in there.
We're live on Instagram.
No, we're not.
We're not live on Instagram. We're now live. We're checking connection on Instagram. All right, now we're live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. And we're talking about ideal training times. What is the optimal time to train? What do you think, babe? Bearded powerlifter in the building. What's up, brother?
Go ahead.
All right, so let's talk about training times. A lot of people train fasted in the morning. Some people train midday on their lunch break. Some people train in the afternoon after they get off work, and some people train in the middle of the freaking night. Which is best? From a super high level view, the best one is the one that is most convenient, most sustainable, and most practical for you in your daily life, because that's the one you're most likely to stick to and be consistent with. And consistency is the most important variable when it comes to training, especially resistance training. But there are certain things you can do to optimize for each of those scenarios from a meal training standpoint, or from a training standpoint. With the fasted AM workouts, which is what Crystal and I do, we basically consider our meal the night prior our pre-workout meal. So whatever we consume the night prior for dinner, that is our quote unquote pre-workout meal. So we try and make that meal optimized for providing nutrients for the next day's training session. So pretty good supply of dietary fat and a relatively good amount of protein. Fat takes quite a bit longer to digest and be assimilated by the body. So by eating it, that many hours prior to training, we feel good to go and are able to tap into that as a fuel source. If you are training in the morning fasted and you're wanting to elongate your fasting period before you break that fast, then you, like, for instance, if you train at 5 o'clock in the morning and you don't want to have your first meal until like lunchtime at noon, that's fine if you're in a caloric surplus. If you're in a caloric deficit, I would try and consume that meal within about a 2-hour window of that training session, just simply to hedge your bets and ensure that you're not having any catabolic effect that is unnecessary. So like when I'm doing a competition prep training in the morning, I'll typically have my meal within about 2 hours of that morning training session. If you're training in the afternoon, you can kind of do it one of two ways. You can train fasted and have your lunch immediately afterwards, or you can train, or you can eat like a breakfast meal if you're someone that likes to eat breakfast, and you can have a breakfast meal and then train around that lunchtime window, and that would be enough time in between your feeding window and your training window. If you're training after work, then you're probably going to have your lunch meal, train several hours afterwards, and then probably again for dinner. If you're training in the middle of the night, that's honestly not, but it is. So if you do that, what I would probably do is eat before you train, and then probably not after training, because if you do like a late night training session, then you eat again right after that, and then you're eating throughout the day, and then your schedule is just all kinds of out of whack.
Did you talk about sleep?
Did I talk about sleep?
Yeah, like not working out before sleep.
I don't like to work out before I sleep because that wakes me up quite a bit. It's kind of like having a caffeine pill right before you go to bed.
It's not just Robert. It definitely messes with your sleep. Some people can do it and they don't seem to have any issues with it. But the majority of people should avoid working out too closely to bedtime. It's just the same thing as, eating too close to bedtime, things like that. So avoiding exercising a few hours before bedtime would be your best bet. It gets your blood pumping, it gets you a little bit more energy and things like that, and it's not conducive to resting, into sleeping and getting a good deep night's sleep.
Good deep night's sleep. I used to work out in the middle of the night though. Like when I was in college, I would train at midnight. I think I would train at 10 until midnight because the gym closed at midnight. So I would do this crazy super late night training sessions. I would like pop myself up on caffeine and pre-workouts and go work out at midnight and then just be a mess. But then I was also not sleeping well, and I'd sleep in a lot too. But those college days are over, thank goodness.
When I first started working out, I set my alarm for midnight, and I would go to the gym in the middle of the night because I didn't want anyone else to be there.
Yeah, she did do that. It was weird. She's a goober. All
they
right.
said when you do it consistently. Yeah, pretty much when you can work out consistently.
How many hours before training in AM is your last meal the night before? Typically, we eat around 6 or 7. And then we've been kind of training. We've been kind of playing around with the workout time. We were working out at like 6 a.m. And now we're working out after our morning meeting with our employees, which puts us working out at about 8:45. So quite a few hours after that feeding window now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more than 12 hours. But again, it's like fat is much more, takes a lot longer to digest it. And it's a slower burning energy. So you really don't have to be hopped up on a whole bunch of caffeine or carb ups or anything like that because you have all the energy stored that you need.
Candace, what's up? Hey, you two. Just got back from a 1.4-mile walk with hubby. Glad to be able to catch you live again. Training sessions are awesome today.
Nice.
That is good to hear.
Mornings are awesome for setting the stage for a positive day. Totally agree with that.
Joy80, hi from Tennessee.
I tend to get a little bit lazier as the day goes on. I get more tired. So I don't really thrive on afternoon workouts. Oops. How do you compare carbs to no carbs for your body to know when it's affecting you, good versus bad?
I haven't had carbs in 7 years, so it would be a hard thing for me to just readily compare because it's been so long. However, I will say this. I've had several people on the podcast recently that are keto half the time and then carbs half the time. And inevitably, what the common theme that I see with all of them is that when they do a carb cycle, they notice a profound increase in inflammation in their joints, like their knees, their elbows, their wrists, their ankles. Like for whatever reason, that seems to be the compound or the common denominator there. So whenever they do the carb ups, they just notice a pretty elevated level of inflammation. So the more inflammation you have, the less likely you're going to be able to train as intensely, as frequently, and that's going to cut down on overall training volume.
I think if you're trying to compare carbs to no carbs, you would have, we find that the longer we stay in ketosis, the better we feel. So if you're going to use carbs or carbing up, we would both suggest being in a state of ketosis and then trying it if that's what you want to do. But again, we are not the carb up people, so we're probably not the best people to ask.
In my 60s, use a total gym and free weights and 3 times a week plus cardio 3 times. What's your thoughts? In my 60s, use a total gym and free weights 3 times a week plus cardio 3 times a week. What's your thoughts?
It depends on what your goals are. What's your goals? What are you doing? You want to quit? Are you doing it because you're trying to build muscle? Are you doing it just to keep busy? All of that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people like the total gym, and a lot of people that have great success with that. So that's not a limiting factor at all.
I am a endomorph. That diet is basically like keto, but still says have some carbs.
I am definitely an ectomorph naturally. I was like 115 pounds when I started working out.
Savages.
What's up, man? But you do have a fatty coffee before working out. Yeah, so I do have a fat fast technically. I don't have a meal before I work out, but I'll have a coffee or two with.
And we don't do it because we feel like we have to. We just like coffee.
Yeah, we just like coffee.
With
and
cream.
I don't like black coffee that much.
Yeah, neither one of us like black coffee.
Leg belling you there?
Yeah, well, he's like shaking up a storm over here.
How much heavy cream do you put in that coffee? 4 tablespoons?
I don't know.
3 or 4 tablespoons? Not much.
Hello, y'all. Hello from Kingston, Ontario.
Kingston, Ontario. What's happening? What's good from Kingston? All right, we need more questions, y'all.
Why did you say that?
I don't know. Hold on. What are some other thoughts? You get any thoughts? What was the other Live at 5 topic? Meal prep.
Yeah.
What about meal prep? I feel like we've talked about meal prep before.
I don't know. They just said meal prep.
Meal prep ideas? Meal prep
I don't know.
Meal prep. Heavy cream, not heavy cream. Eggs, ground beef, and keto break. That's meal
You were
prep.
so
right
excited
there.
about heavy cream.
Heavy cream. Jack, I'm about to put you outside.
He is whining a lot. They can't hear him though.
I can hear him. Driving me
Jack.
crazy.
Stop, please.
All right, we have more questions, y'all. What else we got?
This person really wants to get a hold of Robert.
I know. And he's my t-shirt guy.
Oh.
I got some questions about our t-shirt business. So I'm picking his brain about t-shirts.
Like every 5 seconds, it's like dun, 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 dun. Usually when that happens, it's Danny.
I know. Danny's my secret lover.
Thoughts on artificial sweeteners?
All right, let me answer that real quick. You have any thoughts on artificial sweeteners first?
I guess you can go for it. He's
All right.
excited about this one.
So artificial sweeteners. There's honestly not a lot of really good studies that show that artificial sweeteners are going to massively disrupt your gut microbiome. There are some studies that show that. Most of them are in mice, and most of them are in incredibly large doses. But there are still studies that show that it can affect your gut microbiome. So why would I want to include it anyways? Secondly, artificial sweeteners, any sweetener really, is going to have a different psychological effect on different people. For me, if I have the sensation of a lot of really sweet foods, it doesn't really do much from a satiety standpoint. I find that I get hungrier if I consume something that's sweet. Some of these artificial sweeteners have a caloric load. Some of them do not. Some of them cause a slight insulin response. There's something called the cephalic phase of insulin secretion, or cephalic phase of insulin response. And that's basically when your brain gets the signal that something sweet is coming. It assumes it's sugar and then releases a slight amount of insulin independent of what your blood glucose is doing. Now, that's not a massive amount, so I don't want people to think that that's going to turn them insulin resistant if they taste some sweetness on their tongue. That's not the case at all. But again, that can cause a temporary increase in cravings and a drop in satiety for many, many people. So for me, I'm not really a fan of doing them if I'm trying to like dial in macros and optimize satiety and do a competition prep. I'm a fan of them if it's replacing a higher caloric, sugar, and I'm just wanting something sweet for like a celebratory meal. I'm not really as concerned about dialing in my macros and being satiated.
I would be aware of the fact that most artificial sweeteners are bound to some sort of chemical and are like cancer causing, disease causing. So be aware of what kind you're ingesting and if you're willing to take that risk or not. So that would be something to definitely think about. There's a lot of them that Robert and I avoid, and if that ingredient is in anything, we put it right back down because we just don't want, that's not something that we want to mess with.
But I wouldn't really sweetener causing cancer. There's not really studies that's the case.
I think that's incorrect.
There's just not any studies that show that's the case. Like there was one study. They're
bound to chemicals that are cancer causing.
I certainly don't think it's optimal. I'm not recommending people take in a bunch of artificial sweeteners. But
if you're also not eating organic foods, you're eating pesticides.
Yeah, so, you can go off however deep end you want to go. But I wouldn't want people to say, okay, I can't have any sucralose. I can't chew gum because it's going to give me cancer. I don't think that's a fair statement.
I don't think anyone needs gum.
I haven't had gum in several years.
I know. I'm just saying, there's the things that those artificial sweeteners are in, you don't need. But if you're going to have it on occasion, it's not going to be the death of you. But I don't think a lot of those things are necessary to have in your diet, which is why we stick to a whole food approach. But if you are going to have it on a rare occasion, then I don't think it's going to be so bad. But I'm not telling people to go out and drink a Diet Coke every single day because it has a bunch of artificial sweeteners in it. There's people who will say, oh, they don't think artificial sweeteners is that bad, and they drink 5 Diet Cokes a day. Yeah. That is bad for you. If you're going to have it on a rare occasion, it's probably going to be just fine.
Probably going to be just fine. I found heavy cream made me gain weight, but joints, etc., didn't feel good. Yeah, a lot of people have sensitivities to dairy, so if that's the case, then heavy cream definitely probably not optimal for you.
Also, there's a lot of ingredients in some of the heavy creams too, like the carrageenan. that can cause a lot of inflammation, and people aren't getting heavy cream that just says heavy cream. They're getting it with all the gums and the carrageenan, whatever, and a whole bunch of other added stuff. So make sure that you're looking at the label even in your heavy cream. But there are a lot of people that have sensitivities to just heavy cream, so that could be your situation as well.
Kevin, did heavy whipping cream cause cravings for other dairy or sweet things? That's a good question. He said, not that I noticed. I'm one that can lose weight easily and wanted to gain weight, but the stevia does not bother you. Stevia doesn't really bother me either. Stevia and monk fruit don't really seem to cause any issues for me personally. Allulose, erythritol, xylitol, all that stuff has a lot of GI distress for me.
Why people say keto is no carb, why they're carbs in veggies and seafood. I've never said that keto doesn't have any carbs. I don't know. But there are people that say like they are zero carb, but they definitely are not. So I don't really quite get that either. But there are definitely carbs in vegetables, in like even heavy cream and eggs and seafood and organ meats, and there's carbs in everything. So it's not a no carb diet. It's a low carb diet, technically.
Technically.
Do you have experience working with someone with belly fat due to stress, 19 months carnivore?
Everybody typically has more belly fat, lower back fat, and butt fat. That's pretty much where it typically goes first. Like if you're gaining weight, it's going to accumulate there first. And if you're losing weight, that's typically going to be the last spot it is to disappear. It's a lot of theories as to why that is the case. One simply being that that's where all your organs are. So from an evolutionary protective standpoint, if you're going to, be protected against any type of attack, protecting your organs as having more fat around your midsection makes sense. I don't know if that's actually why that is the case or not, but you can't spot train fat loss. So you can't really say, hey, I'm only going to target the fat loss around my midsection and butt and not my arms. You kind of just have to diet down and then let it come off as it comes off. That said, stress can absolutely induce more fat gain. Higher cortisol levels is going to lend itself to lower testosterone levels if you're a guy, which is going to be slightly inhibitory towards fat loss, optimizing fat loss, retaining muscle. So getting your stress in check is very, very important.
Yeah, I have worked with a lot of clients that I know that they're not going to be able to lose the weight unless they get rid of the stresses that are in their life. And sometimes Jackson,
okay, I'm putting him inside.
He's so bad. But a lot of stresses can be removed in life or just reorganized. Some stresses cannot be removed, and you have to figure out how you're going to live with them, and how you can adjust your way of thinking around those stresses. So that would be my biggest thing. And sometimes that's what I end up working with my clients on, is just how to reduce fat loss, because we don't like to put someone who is in an overly stressed state in a caloric deficit. It is not something that I do with my clients because I don't think it's healthy. Your body's going to hold on to that fat. If you're constantly in like that fight or flight mode, your body's going to constantly fight you on it. So I would definitely get the stress under control, remove some of the variables, or learn how to manage some of those. You can see a counselor, maybe get babysitting help, maybe, whatever it is. There's got to be something out there that's going to be able to help you figure out how to manage those stresses, because it's not healthy to live with stress anyways.
Harry says, do you use supersets? I really like push-pull supersets such as chest and back or biceps and triceps. I love supersetting. I pretty much superset everything except for the primary compound movements like squats, deadlift, bench press, and overhead press, because I'm trying to go really heavy on those. But everything else, pretty much everything else was superset.
We did a period of time where we were like, let's try to not superset things. And we were just...
It was boring.
Yeah, we were bored. It was really weird. We were bored, and you don't have to superset it and make it super hard, but like just do calves in the middle, or do some core exercises, or superset like you were saying, like the back and biceps, or whatever. It just makes it more fun. Your blood gets pumping, and it's good.
I got stevia in the liquid form and make sure no other ingredients, which some do have. I stay away from powdered sweeteners. Those have aggravated ingredients. I just add it to hot drinks. When I've been carnivore, I have the least taste for sweetness. When I eat veg, I have a bit more taste for it. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think going with like a liquid stevia is probably the cleanest option from a sweetener standpoint.
For weight loss, forget calorie counting and stick to macros or counting calories. So macros equal your calories. So for fat, there is 9 calories for every 1 gram. For carbs and proteins, there's 4 calories for every 1 gram. So your carbs, proteins, and fats actually total out your calories. So it all works together. But if you have a macro goal, then go for the goal. Go for the goal of those macros. That way you're getting the right calories, first of all, the right ratio of fat to protein to carbs that you're trying to aim for. And yeah, because if you're eating, so say your goal is to eat 2,000 calories a day. You could eat a bunch of fat one day and very little protein. And the next day you're eating a bunch of protein and very little fat. And your body's going to have a hard time regulating how and where to put everything because you're going to be throwing it off all the time. There could be a high protein day, high carb day, high fat day. And all of the other ones are a little bit lower, but you need to make sure you're getting optimal amounts of protein, keeping your carbs low, and then giving yourself enough fat for energy and hormones and all of that kind of stuff. So we count macros, but it's also counting total calories altogether.
Truckology, what's up, man? Hope all is well with you too, brother. Say you are 60 plus pounds overweight and you want to gain muscle and also lose weight. Which one should you start with first? So if I don't know what your caloric intake is, that would pretty much be what I would need to know to answer that question accurately. But if you're 60 pounds overweight, you would probably benefit from focusing on fat loss. But that's not to say you can't build muscle while you're doing that, especially if you haven't been doing much resistance training up to this point. If you're not doing much resistance training currently and you add that in, your body is going to be pretty responsive to that new stimulus. So I would encourage you to probably, like I said, I don't know what your current caloric intake is, but probably focus on fat loss while also doing as much resistance training as possible and not just becoming a slave to the cardio machine.
Yeah, if you're currently in a cutting or a weight loss phase, or you have been for a while, if you're under eating, then we would say just go increase your calories, lift heavy, you do all the workouts, try to gain some strength and reset everything. But if you've been in a maintenance or building phase, then it's time to focus on a little bit of fat loss.
Sarah says, yay. Well, Crystal said some people call it CBT. I think by focusing gratitude and the idea of facing fears along with the golden rule, it becomes a way of life mindset that helps to reduce stress.
Yeah.
Do you implement drop sets in your training? But I do like drop sets too.
Brothers and sisters who keto together stay together.
Boom. What's your go-to keto meal?
Excuse me, that's mine to read. Go-to keto meal.
Keto pizza.
For Robert, maybe.
Steak.
I think lately I've been really enjoying chili. If it's made, because I have to make it. But usually I make it in like a big pot, and then it usually lasts us for a little while. So I'd say lately chili. It's so good. Hey guys, I've already asked this to Robert in regards to low energy. How often do you guys drink electrolytes and salt? Do you just do it in the AM or night or both?
I like to drink, you want to make sure your ratio is right. So about a 2-to-1 ratio of supplemental sodium to potassium. You can start with a 4,000 milligram sodium intake, 2,000 milligram potassium, and titrate up from there. I like to do some in the morning, some intra-training, and then some at some point in the afternoon. That's typically how I break mine up.
I would say it's important to break it up. You don't want to just do a whole bunch all at one time. But make sure you're also drinking plenty of water with it. as well. Some people just mix it with like a small amount of water, and you have to balance the electrolytes with the water as well. So that's a big thing. And then maybe spreading it out throughout the day, like having it in a big jug and then just drinking it throughout the day.
I'm not a newbie and almost 60-year-old female. Do you think possible to gain muscle with very low carbs? 100% possible to gain muscle with low carbs. I'm actually going to make a post on that tomorrow, probably. So stay tuned for that.
Who did stinking amazing is Nurse Cindy. If you know Cindy at all or don't know her, look up Ask Nurse Cindy, and she has done amazing things. I don't know how old she is.
60. I don't want to
somewhere. I don't know how old she is, but she has been an amazing person to guide people toward, because she has decided, like, I'm going to build muscle. I'm going to do this. I'm going to lift heavy. And she has done it. What's so funny?
You're just cute when you're like.
Yeah. But she's so awesome. And so if you're looking for someone to kind of look up to, go watch Ask Nurse Cindy. And she's a rock star. And she's like the sweetest person in the world.
She is the sweetest.
I appreciate you explaining this, because sadly so many just go off of under 20 carbs, but wonder why they aren't losing weight, eating at a surplus due to a massive amount of fat so many eat.
Yeah, some of them are eating too much fat, some of them are eating too much protein. You can definitely eat too much protein too. Protein's not given this halo that can be consumed in excess. There's a optimal intake for every macronutrient, but yeah, you can definitely overconsume, and then being at a surplus is not going to miraculously make you lose weight if you're doing keto.
Great question. Could you send or post your recipe for chili? So we're actually filming some Keto Savage Kitchen episodes tomorrow, and chili is one of them because I have gotten it down. I made it for like a Christmas party thing that we had for the crew, and then they had me make it for their lunches for the week, 1 week, and it's really good. I really enjoy it. So yes, we will be posting that very soon, probably in the next month or so, the chili recipe, and I hope you enjoy it.
Adrian asked about the keto chili as well. So yeah, we got that recipe coming, brother. Thoughts on using blood flow restriction bands? I think it's great, especially for if people are injured or not wanting to load their CNS with really heavy weights, load their spine with really heavy weights. You can use a much lighter load, but used in tandem with BFR bands, you can get quite a bit of blood flow and stimulate the muscle in a different way, but I don't know if it's equally as effective or more effective. I probably wouldn't be necessarily more effective, but I feel like you can definitely get a great workout with BFR bands.
Hey, Robert, it's Theo. I got COVID, haven't been eating much and no working out in a couple of days. How should I get back into things?
Just dive right back in, brother. That's the best way to get back on that horse. Don't try and hit a PR first off. Just try and get back to where you were.
I just want to give you give a big thanks to you, Robert, for advising me on doing a reverse diet a couple of months ago. I also, if you guys are curious about the reverse dieting stuff, I just did a video on reverse dieting on our YouTube channel. So if you guys are curious about reverse dieting or want to, I am very cut and dry. I don't talk very scientifically or break things down into the molecule. That's just not the way I roll. So if you want a very layman's term option of reverse dieting, that's a really great video to go watch.
I'm 51 and doing that right now with Robert's coaching me. It can be done for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Candace, let me give her a shout out real quick. Her lifts, Candace is probably, of all the clients I've ever worked with, her ability to progressively overload her muscles and hit new PRs and new volume loads with every single day that passes is freaking crazy. Every time she messaged me, she's like, hey, I hit a new volume high today, new PR on this, new PR on that. So
it's amazing.
Yeah, she's kicking butt. Thank you, Nurse Cindy, a newbie. She's a newbie with training.
Yeah.
But yeah.
She's been around for as long or longer than everyone else has. But she's a newbie to weight training.
Yeah.
What's good? What's a good thing to drink if you're trying to stay away from diet drinks besides water? So water, of course, but you can add lime or lemon or something like that.
Topo Chico.
You can do Topo Chico, like a sparkling water. You can get like a
Zevia.
Soda Stream that does the carbonated water for you. You can do
whiskey. I'm joking.
You can do like teas, like herbal teas and things like that aren't gonna dehydrate you. And what other things? We do enjoy Zevias. So if you still want something that's kind of like a diet soda but sweetened with stevia rather than whatever else they sweeten those with, the diet sodas, then Zevia is a really great option.
Thank you, Candace. Do you post your progress? And congratulations. Yes, she has an Instagram. She posts on there. Go check her out for sure.
Yeah, she'll have to comment what her username is. Get out of here. That's mine. Do you guys drink coffee? And is there such a thing as too much? LOL. Yes, there's way too much coffee.
No, there's not too much coffee.
So oddly enough, okay, so I stopped drinking caffeine before I got pregnant, and clearly I've not had it in like 10 months. I've not had caffeine in 10 months. And so I have really adjusted and learned how little caffeine my body needs in order for me to feel really good. So I have gone on this kick of like, no one needs caffeine. Like that's the thing. I don't actually plan on ever going back to caffeinated coffee or drinks or whatever because I just don't. No, because I'm also one of those people who's a freak about what they're going to eat and drink when they're breastfeeding because that's who I am. And I don't plan on drinking much caffeine when I'm feeding my child. So if I'm going to be breastfeeding for a while and then we have another child and then I'll be breastfeeding again, so on. I just don't see it. It's not a necessary thing. Maybe every great once in a while, I might want a London Fog, which is like one of my favorite drinks, and I have not been able to have one unless I make it from home with the decaf. But there is such a thing as too much coffee. First of all, there's a thing as too much caffeine. Coffee, I would say try to get organic coffee. Like coffee is one of the items that has the most pesticides used on it.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting organic coffee, you're getting a ton of pesticides in your drinks. So try to get organic coffee if you can. And then maybe try to lighten it up with a little bit of decaf, especially later in the day. I try to get my clients to stop drinking coffee 7 or 8 hours before they go to bed because it's just not necessary.
Boom. All right. Reverse that information in Robert's book is amazing. Freaking love it, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Freaking love it. Get
whiskey.
Out of here.
All right, we got to go. I got a meeting here.
Whiskey. You said whiskey.
Milk on carnivore diet, good or bad?
We are not the carnivore. It's totally up to you as an individual. I think that's what any carnivore would say too, is maybe not any carnivore, but I think a lot of them say like they are not a dictator of what you can and can't have. But that's exactly right. Like decide what you want to do and then go with that. Some carnivores do raw milk. Some carnivores do raw milk, and raw milk has just as much sugar or more than heavy cream does. So it's really going to be up to you as an individual if you want to.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We got to bounce. I got the boogie. We miss any questions over here?
Do you drink decaf coffee? I am able to drink decaf coffee. There was several weeks, like a lot of weeks, where coffee was something that sounded so gross to me in my pregnancy. And even now, I'd say 3 out of 7 days a week, I'm not drinking coffee in the morning. It just doesn't sound that great to me, which is weird because I was a coffee lover before.
I love coffee still. You guys are great. Thank you for all your help. Thank you. Keep up the savagery. Any way to fix hypoglycemia on keto diets?
I have had a couple of clients have hypoglycemia on keto.
You should see, like, I don't know how low your numbers are getting. I'd be kind of curious to figure that out and say what the baselines are. But it's not uncommon to see people that start a ketogenic diet experience a pretty significant drop in baseline blood glucose levels, and then that start to increase slightly as they increase calories to figure out what their protein intake is, and they consume more protein. So that's something. I don't know what your macros are like.
Decaf does have caffeine. Yes, I have debunked this a million times. So caffeinated, a cup of caffeinated coffee is between 60 and 80 grams of caffeine. A cup of decaf coffee has 2 milligrams of caffeine. So there's 60 to 80 milligrams of caffeine in a normal cup of coffee and 2 milligrams of caffeine in a cup of decaf. So it's super, super low in caffeine. And by the time it gets through my system to my baby, it's going to be a way. Bye. See you later, guys. Sorry about that.
Throw you on the ground.
I don't even know how that happened. It's going to be a way lower amount of caffeine that will ever reach a baby in the uterus or a baby who is breastfeeding. So decaf is a much better option, even though there's the tiniest amount of caffeine. If you're getting 2 milligrams of caffeine every day, you should not feel bad.
All right, y'all. I hate to say it, but I got to bounce. Got to run.
Robert's got to bounce. People are blowing up his phone.
But we love y'all with all of our hearts. We're going to miss you. We're going to talk to you next Wednesday. It's going to be grand. Appreciate y'all for tuning in today. See y'all next time.
See ya.